but a space of a social glue, which is what we read in Inner Life of Animals. So bookstores help you become a social glue. And when you become social glue, there is more trust, there's a relationship building. That's what this book is all about, Shubhdeep sir.
Thank you, Sandeep. In fact, very interesting that you talked about how instinctively you know what kind of books people would like to read, because as the author says, that's the reason why a bookstore exists.
Yeah, absolutely.
The ability to recommend to people. And,
when you flip this book towards the end, it mentioned another two books.
I know. I saw that.
Yeah. So I don't know if we'll read the sequence or not, but even those two books are very fascinating because those two stories are from Japan. And like we read Toto-chan, it reminded me of those days when we were reading Toto-chan.
Yes.
Japanese literature, when translated, is very, very minimal, like the civilization level.
Right.
Very, very minimal. It's very value-driven. And it's very much connected to an average human life.
Right.
There is also a book, Whatever You Want to Know, You'll Find in the Library. That's the name of the book, by the way. So they're all similar genre. So once you read this, maybe we'll find a genre to read after that. I really don't know. But as far as I'm concerned, the book I am going to read after Inner Life of Animals is about nature by the same author. So that will complete the trilogy of Peter Wohlleben. So over to you, Door to Door Bookstore, and welcome to the bookstore.
The first lines of this book, it has been said that books find their own readers, right? So I wonder if you have a book for us on that, how books find their own readers. Peter Wohlleben hasn't written one, based on what you just told us. But
Toto-chan is a fantastic example what started my good school. So I shared with you the other day Yellow Train School, if you remember.
Right.
Story of the Yellow Train School.
Yeah.
I sent you the link.
Yeah.
So now that we were talking of schools which can influence reading society, social culture, this is an example where they created a train school in India, like Toto-chan. So likewise in a bookstore, there are many things we have to look at. Particularly in a bookstore, we feel that we need an extra sensory perception. So in the bookstore, we have to not just look at the sound and the feel and the light and the nature. We also have to look, we have to have an instinct. And that's the beauty of a bookstore.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a great day. I'm afraid I have to leave. So enjoy the day. And in case you want, I think this is being recorded, this particular session today. Ma'am, Fathom will have all the details. You can pick up from there. Manisha ma'am, you'll have a lot of detail on Fathom to build your reflection.
Yes, sir. I've already done something in the blogger and I'll pick from there.
Fathom is available. I see Fathom was there on top. So Fathom, by the way, is my AI robo. So Fathom has taken highlights. So there are some stories in that which you may like to take.
I'll do that, sir.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Shall see you. So, before we start the book, I just thought I'd tell you a little bit about the author. So Carsten Henn was born in Cologne in 1973, is a wine journalist and a restaurant critic in addition to his work as an author. He has written many successfully culinary crime novels, as well as romantic comedies, plays, and a picture book. His novel, The Door-to-Door Bookstore, was on the Spiegel bestseller list for over 2 years, sold over 500,000 copies in Germany alone, was translated into more than 30 languages, and was made into a film with Christoph Maria Herbst in the title role. His next novels, The Story Baker and The Bread and Butter Letters, were also big bestsellers. He has received several awards for his literary works. Okay, so let's start reading this book. This is what the cover looks like, and we will just see a description of that. Or we'll just hear the description of that. It has been said that books find their own readers. Okay, think about that. it has been said that books find their own readers. And that's why I was joking with Sandeep that, when we read the books by Peter Walbain on trees and animals, we sort of discovered so much more about them in terms of how they're more like human than we thought they were. So I was just joking with him whether he'll find something about books like that as well, because it's said here that books find their own readers, but sometimes they need someone to show them the way. Living proof of this could be found at a bookshop in southern Germany that went by the name of the City Gate. Admittedly, the name was an unusual choice, since the actual City Gate, or at least what remained of it, which even locals often mistook for an avant-garde artwork, stood a good 3 streets away. Avant-garde means out of the ordinary. So it's not, it's sort of modernistic, or it's out of the ordinary, not the typical. It was a very old bookshop, constructed and extended time and again over numerous historical periods. Extravagant architectural ornament and stucco. Stucco is a plaster, okay, and it's used to create different types of designs, and you'll see it in many buildings and many, especially in churches. Very, very pretty stucco. And stucco rubbed shoulders with unadorned right angles. The glorious juxtaposition is putting side by side of the old and the new, the flamboyant and the restrained, which characterized the building's exterior, also continued into its interior. Red plastic stands of CDs and DVDs stood next to frosted metal shelves of mangas. Mangas are Japanese comics or graphic novels. These in turn took their place next to globes, displayed in polished glass cases or elegant wooden shelves of books. Customers could find board games, stationery, tea, and even chocolate, a recent addition for sale. The labyrinth, which means maze-like, labyrinthine room, was dominated by a heavy, dark counter known to employees simply as the altar. What's an altar? Anybody, what's an altar? Okay, please Google it. It looked like a relic from the Baroque period. Carvings on the front depicted a rural scene of a hunting party astride magnificent steeds, a pack of wiry dogs alongside, in pursuit of a group of wild boar. Inside, one late summer's day, the question that is the raison d'etre, which is the reason for being, of every bookshop was being asked, can you recommend a good book? The questioner, Ursula Schaffer, knew exactly what constituted a good book. Firstly, it must be gripping enough to keep her awake in bed, reading until her eyes drooped shut. Secondly, it must contain at least 3, preferably 4 points at which she was moved to tears. Thirdly, it must have no less than 300 pages, but no more than 380. And fourthly, the cover must never be green. Books with green covers were not to be trusted. Bitter experience had taught her this on several occasions. Certainly, replied Sabine Gruber, who had been manager at the City Gate for the past 3 years. What kinds of books do you enjoy reading? Ursula Schaffer did not wish to say. She wanted Sabine Gruber to know. After all, as a bookseller, she was surely naturally endowed with a certain level of clairvoyant skill. Clairvoyant? Clairvoyant is somebody who can see the future and see into somebody else's mind. Give me 3 key words and I will find just the right one to suit you. Romance, rural, cozy. Yes? I wonder, is Mr. Koloff there? Asked Ursula Schaffer, her tone uneasy. He always knows what I like. He knows what everyone likes. No, I'm afraid he is not here today. Mr. Koloff only works for us occasionally now. What a shame. Never mind, I have something for you. A family saga set in Cornwall. Look, the cover art shows the family's stately manor and grounds. It's green. Ursula Schaffer stared at Sabine Gruber in reproach. Reproach is when you're trying to scold somebody. Bright green. That's because the story is set on the Earl of Durnborough's grand estate. It's had very good reviews. The heavy front door opened stiffly, settling the little copper bell above it tinkling brightly. Karl Koloff folded his umbrella, gave it his habitual shake, and placed it in the stand. His gaze scanned the bookshop he called home, on the lookout for new literary arrivals awaiting an introduction to his customers. He always likened himself to a beachcomber who needed only a single glance to spy a hoard of treasures ready to be seized and freed from the grainy sand. As his gaze lit upon Ursula Schaffer, however, the treasures were forgotten in an instant. She threw him a warm smile, as though he were an amalgam of all the charming men she had fallen in love with in the pages of the books he'd recommended over the years. In reality, Karl resembled none of those characters. He had once had a small paunch, but over the years it had receded, much like the hair on his head, as though they had entered into a pact to disappear together. Now, at age 72, he was lean, but continued to wear his old, now oversized clothes. His former boss, Sabine's father, had told him he'd begun to look as though his only source of nourishment was the words in his books, which were notoriously low in carbohydrates, but rich in substance, Karl had responded. Karl wore rugged. Rugged is tough. Heavy shoes of thick black leather with soles solid enough to last a lifetime. Good socks were also essential, in his opinion. These he combined with olive green overalls and matching collared jacket. On his head, he wore a narrow-brimmed fisherman's hat to protect his eyes from rain and bright sunshine. He never took it off, even indoors, other than to sleep. Somehow he felt less than fully clothed without it. Nor was he ever seen without his glasses, the frames bought from an antique shop decades ago. Behind them peered shrewd eyes. Shrewd is astute, which bore signs of a lifetime of reading too long in poor light. Miss Schaffer, how lovely to see you, he said, stepping towards Ursula Schaffer just as she took a step towards him and away from Sabine Gruber. May I recommend a book that would make ideal bedtime reading? I so enjoyed the last one, especially when they gazed into each other's eyes in the end. A kiss would have been even better to seal the deal, but on this occasion, I'll settle for a gaze. It was almost more intense than a kiss, don't you think? Some gazes can be. Not when I'm doing the kissing. For a moment, Ursula Schaffer felt deliciously wicked, a rare occurrence for her nowadays. This book, said Carl, taking one from the pile next to the till, has been waiting for you since the moment it was unpacked. Set in Provence. Provence is a region in France, and every word scented with lavender. Oh, Bordeaux red books are the best. Does it end with a kiss? Have I ever given an ending away? No, she spouted back, but took the book from his hand. Carl would never dream of recommending a novel without a happy end to her. But on no account would he rob Ursula Schaffer of the tiny thrill of wondering whether this one would be different. I'm so glad there are books in the world, she said. I hope that's one thing that never changes. So many things do, and this happens so fast. Everyone pays with plastic money now. People give me such odd looks whenever I count out the right things at the till. Written word will always remain, Miss Schaffer. Sometimes there is simply no better form of expression. Print is the best preserving agent for thoughts and stories. It keeps them fresh for centuries. Well, let's just stop here for a second. We read a little bit. It's a little more hard words than the last book we had read, and I hope you'll be able to follow it. I've been trying to give you, the meanings as we going along. So, Citygate, right? I mean, that's the name of the bookshop. Baroque. I came across Baroque period, right? So, does anybody have any idea which is the Baroque period? It was, I remember looking it up, I think the 17th and early 18th century. Yeah, 17th and early 18th century. And it was the period just after the Renaissance.
And they were known for their
And it refers to style, could be art, could be writing, poetry, architecture. So the different style of how things were, conceived of at that particular time. And when I was looking at some of the artists from that period, Rembrandt, and I remember seeing Rembrandt's Night Watch in Amsterdam, which is one of his most famous paintings, right? Earl, we came across Earl, right? Earl is a British title. It's like third highest in their rank. The bookshop had a bell which rang when Carl entered. Why do you think that happened? Any thoughts? Why did that happen? Why do people put a bell? Manju, you want to try and answer that? Why do people put a bell at the entrance of a store? I mean, actually, ma'am, I'm sure you know the answer to that. Yes, please go ahead. Yes, Meenakshi, ma'am.
one reason you can't hear me.
You hear me?
Yes, there's now.
Yeah. So one reason is because see, most of the bookstore, the keepers, they are busy reading or doing some work while they are at it, and when the bell rings, they are warned of the person who's coming in. That is one reason. Okay, there could be other reasons as well, like but that is the main reason that I think. I always have seen that bookstore keepers, they need not be always be sitting at the counter. They
Yeah.
might be elsewhere arranging books, reading books, doing whatever, and that is the
No, no, absolutely. It's to alert them that somebody's walked in. I mean, many times, you can have somebody who's alone in another part of the store. So, I mean, bookstores and other stores also, I've seen that's happening. When he's talking of Carl's eyes, it's said that looks like somebody who's read in poor light. So, does reading in poor light damage the eyes? What do you all think? Reading in poor light, does it damage the eyes? Actually, the answer is no. And I was quite surprised myself. And it just puts more strain on your eyes. But it
Yes,
actually doesn't damage the eyes. Yes, Meenakshi.
the power does not increase at all, but yes, there's a lot of strain in eye and headaches and all can happen. So
Right.
that is the thing. Otherwise, no.
Yes, and it's the same with screens apparently. That's
Yeah.
what it does. Strains your eyes and actually doesn't damage your eyes. Okay, so let's get back to the book. Where will we? Okay. With a warm smile of farewell, Karl Koloff stepped through a door covered with advertising posters into a room that served as both stockroom and office for the bookshop. Inside was a desk barely visible under stacks of books and an old computer monitor framed with yellow post-its. An enormous calendar covered in red pen dominated the wall. As always, his book orders were waiting in a black plastic crate in the darkest corner of the room. In former times, their place had been on the desk, but since Sabine had taken the bookshop over from her father, the crate had migrated a little farther away each day towards the least accessible corner. In tandem with its migration, the crate's contents had gradually reduced. Few people needed book delivery these days, and every year their numbers continued to dwindle. That's true of bookshops as well, right? I mean, we'll get Sandeep's inputs on that. But, that's why if you noticed in the beginning, the bookshop has also started to sell a lot of other things, right? CDs, chocolate was the latest addition, right? Board games, stationery, tea. So bookshop, is trying to add things to what else they sell besides books to get customers in. Hiya, Mr. Koloff. What did you make of the game? That was never a penalty. The ref must have been blind. Leon, the new work experience lad, exited the tiny staff toilet, followed by a cloud of cigarette smoke. Anyone else would have known it was utterly useless asking Carl such a question. He never watched the news, never listened to the radio, never read a newspaper. He would have been the first to admit that he had lost touch with the world. It had been a deliberate decision. Once all the reports of incompetent state leaders, ice cap melt, and suffering refugees had begun to sadden him more than the most tragic literary family saga ever could. Right? So real life he's finding is, worse than what's in the books. It had been a form of self-preservation, even though his world had shrunk as a result. The world he now inhabited measured no more than 2 by 2 kilometers, and he patrolled its borders every day. Have you heard of J.L. Carr's fantastic book about football? Asked Carl. preferring to ask a question than to take sides on the issue of referees' competence. Is it about our club? No, it's about the Steeple Cinderby Wanderers. Never heard of them. Don't read books anyway. Only if I have to. In school. Even then, I try to watch the film instead. Leon grinned, as if this was a cunning way to make a fool of his teacher rather than himself. Then why are you doing work experience here? My sister did the same 3 years ago. We live around the corner. It's a short walk to get here. Leon was to work at the bookshop for 2 weeks, as was customary for most students in Germany. He neglected to mention that anyone who failed to find the work experience place was forced to spend the allotted 2 weeks helping the caretaker, who would use the time and a selection of suitably humiliating tasks to take his revenge on the whole school body, as represented by the work experience students. For all the graffitied walls, old chewing gum stuck under desks, and discarded self-eaten packed lunches. Discarded half-eaten packed lunches. Does your sister enjoy reading? After she came here, sure, but that won't happen to me. Carl smiled. He knew exactly why Leon's sister had taken to reading. His former boss, Gustav Gruber, now a resident at the Münsterblick care home, had known exactly what to do with reluctant readers like Leon and his sister. He could set them to dusting each individual plastic-wrapped greeting card one by one. The student in question was guaranteed, out of sheer despair at the tedium, to reach for the nearest book, which of course had been strategically deposited within easy reach by Gruber himself. Gustav Gruber had converted them all. He had always been good with children. To Carl, children had always been unfathomable creatures. Someone he couldn't understand, that is. Even back when he himself had been one. And the further he left his own childhood behind, the more strange and peculiar they seemed to him. So two things. One, in the earlier part I was reading, they talked of changes that have happened in one's lifetime. Right? I mean, I can also recall many, but would somebody else recall some changes in day-to-day life a few years ago and now? What would it be? Some changes over the years that you've seen. Right? What comes to mind? Big changes. In groups versus in rooms. Tell us more. What do you mean by that, ma'am?
Sorry, there was typing mistake, sir. It is in grounds and in rooms. Now we are with Wi-Fi enabled room, and we used to be in ground. We were very social.
Can you say that again? We used to be in grounds.
Ground, sir. Outside the house.
Right. Yes, because of all these devices and internet, indoor is significantly more than outdoor. Children play less, right, compared to earlier.
We were close to nature as well as people.
Right. Now you're with yourself.
Yeah. We are watching the things of nature on the screen.
Right. Yes, that technology, because of the way technology has moved, that's been a big change in life. Obviously, how we communicate, the point that that was made earlier, because of technology and way of communication, email, phone, the world seems much smaller, right?
And one more great change we can find in a few years, sir. We used to be together, now we are individuals. For example, we used to sit before TV, we were together. Now we sit before mobile, we are individuals.
Right. Yeah. And but I mean, eventually it's something to do with us as parents also, right?
Agree.
I mean, in terms of what we are able to get children to imbibe, right?
True, sir.
So yeah, a lot of many changes. How we travel, where all we at. Where all you. I mean, as a kid, I remember. I mean, when somebody went abroad, the full family we came to see them off, came to receive them. It's such a big thing. I mean, it's fairly common now. The age at
Yeah.
which children are able to fly now. I mean, it's amazing how things have changed, how accessible information is. Google in itself, search engines. I mean, it's just
And interestingly, sir, the people who went to abroad in ancient time, they were the legends. Whether we talk about Mahatma Gandhi ji or Vivekanand ji, they turned to be legends. Now we do not find as many legends as we used to.
yes and no. So I fundamentally agree with what you're saying, because you're coming from a moral side, right? In terms of,
Yeah.
but eventually people who are at the front end of, let's say, technology, doing, inventing things and all, would be, you could say they're legends, right? In terms of, if somebody can clone a human being, right? I mean, you would say that he'd be a legend, right? People are cloning animals currently, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think just the outlook has changed a lot, but yeah, in terms of leading the world, in terms of what we're seeing everywhere in the world, there's more. I mean, that's why Carl has stopped watching. I'm watching the news, right? Because of the quality of the leadership that he sees around and what's happening, right? And especially after Trump coming in, right? It's become even more and
Sir,
more.
when you were talking about Shami Das, for him also you told the same thing, that he was the man who studied in abroad, but he really wanted to work for his nation, isn't it?
Right. Right. I mean, he saw lots of things had to be fixed here, right? So I think that's one of the
Yeah.
things that drove him back here. But also, I think it's also to do with opportunities and what comes your way. So yeah, I think I mean, Mahatma Gandhi certainly chose to come back, right?
Yeah, so Shami Das chose to stay here, but
Yeah.
today people, once they go outside, they prefer to stay outside, not to come back to their nation.
I think again it's a
This,
mix. I think it's a mix. There are many who stay outside, but I think earlier, I mean, I don't have data on it, but I would guess that the percentage of people coming back now has gone up. Percentage, maybe more are going, and so the numbers may look huge, but I would imagine because the opportunities in India are much more, right? I mean,
yeah,
in the 70s, the opportunities, 60s, 70s, even early 80s, opportunities were less, right? So I think the opportunities outside were more, but here India's on the move, right? So I mean, the opportunities are
growing.
many. I mean, over the next 5 years, many markets will double. And just think
Yeah,
about it. Anything that you do, you could be successful at if you're good at what you do. I mean, everything is going to double. I mean, I'm talking of products, right? Not necessarily schools and teachers and students, because they won't. But in terms of consumption, things will double. So it's in the next. And think about it. It took India's economy took many decades to move from 1 trillion to 2 trillion. The next, and the next trillion comes faster, the next trillion comes faster. So, opportunities are, certainly massive in India now. So I think that's one of the reasons people are coming back. But yeah, many people still leave and they prefer to stay there. I have many in my family who've, not chosen to come back. They went to study, and that's what happened. This, and we just read about this lady, Sabine Gruber's father, staying in a care home, which is also a very Western thing. Are you seeing it in India now? Is this thing starting to happen? Care homes for older people? Do we
For
have-
older people. No. In my surrounding, not much, sir.
Yeah. So do you think it'll happen in India? The same thing.
It may be, sir, so for our kids, or maybe after a few years for us also.
Yeah. I mean, you have the family bonds, I guess, a little stronger, but the key thing, I think what you mentioned about individualism, that's what drove it, right? So if that sort of thing keeps going up, then that's what will happen.
It has started in India, so old age. We have senior living, the Antara near Kasiga School, Dehradun. There's another one in Dehradun, which is in the Upper Rajpur Road. And as students, we used to go to St. Vincent's House, Calcutta, to look after the old, to meet the old people living over there, and the Little Sisters Home. So it's there, very much there in India. But yeah, maybe not to the extent it is in the West, but it's still there.
So, something like an Antara is, basically every independent by themselves, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I was talking more care home more in terms of the other example you gave, right? There are.
St. Vincent and Little Sisters were proper care homes where old people
Yeah. Where basically it's a whole bunch of older people living together in the same house because, they don't have any family with them, because in Antara it's very different, right? You can come and go,
Yeah.
family can be there, you're on your own,
Yeah.
pretty much.
But again, it may not be of the same caliber as St. Vincent's or Little Sisters Home. But then again, it is a place where old people can go and live and be comfortable. Everything is looked into at a price. If you have money, you can, of course, go for these. But it simply means that if your family members cannot take care of you, then that is one place where you can be sure that you'll be taken care of in your old age. So that is one thing that is there. We may not always choose to be like that. Indians have this mindset that our families are our best sense of, they are our best support. But many people may opt for living this sort of a life too, because what happens is when children grow up, they may not always be in a position to stay with us and support us. They might be living in another town or in another place, and we may not want to go there. So that is also there. So
Very true, ma'am. The difference here is we do not have old age home in my city, but here the people, the kids go abroad and they stay there, and the people they are staying here and they have everything with them. They can manage their food and all with the servants. So they are not going to old age home, but they are somewhere living like in an old age home because they are living alone. They are not with their kids.
I just want to add here, like West, we do have townships also started developing where it is there with all the amenities and all the nursing and care and everything, and people are like old people are volunteering to live with them together. Townships in India.
That is somewhat the concept of this thing, Antara as well.
Exactly.
They have everything within the campus, including a medical team and a restaurant and people to come and take care of them, clean up their house.
I know
everything.
a temple in Maharashtra, Pune, where on the first floor there is a temple with good garden, beautification is there. And on the ground floor there is old age home. Like in case I want to go and live, I'll just pay something, and me and my spouse, till the time we are alive, both of us, we will be living there. And after that, it will be transferred to somebody else. So we won't become the owner of that particular flat or a room or something. But till the time we are alive, we can enjoy that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So part of it is, we moved from a joint family system to now many families going nuclear, right? I think more than 50% are nuclear. And for sure in the urban areas, I remember reading somewhere. That's one thing. And I was just wondering whether you have the joint family system outside India. Does anybody know? Do you have a joint family system outside India? When I Googled it, what it tells me is that it's basically is there in other parts of Asia, particularly in China, Korea, and part of the Middle East. So there in some of these cultures, but I didn't come across there in the Western world. So I don't know. That may be one difference. Maybe the family bonds are stronger here. Anyway, let's see. Current individualism, as Ida ma'am pointed out, is certainly going against it. So let's see how things go. Old Gruber had tempted Leon's sister with a novel in which a young woman falls in love with a vampire. For Leon, clearly brimming with raging hormones, Gruber would have left out a book with a beautiful teenage girl on the cover and large print pages. It's important that they read, not what they read. So any comments on that? It's important that they read, not what they read. Any comments on
Yes. Yes, I think so. It's important. Both are important in their own way. First, it's important to read. Second is, of course, any sort of literature, I think it gives you a lot of, something to think about. So it's important to read. What we read, then of course the choice comes once we start recognizing what we like, and then it comes. That's how I feel, because I have read all sorts of literature. Okay, including Mills and Boons, a lot of it as well, which is not
Right.
considered to be much of a literature. But then over a period of time, I've decided to shift to something more. Now I'm more into metaphysics. I of course wouldn't go for those books. I've read Shakespeare, I've read Charles Dickens, I've read all those things when
Right.
I was deciding what to read. So and that is how it is. And I
Right, right. So it's important that they read not what they read. Old Gruber had always said. Carl couldn't quite endorse that view for all the books. The ideas found between the covers of some were worse than poison, but more often than not, there was healing to be found on the page, sometimes even for ailments the reader hadn't realized that they were suffering from. So has that ever happened to you, Meenakshi ma'am? You mentioned reading, right? Says that there was healing to be found on the page, sometimes even for ailments that readers hadn't realized they were suffering from.
I'll give you an example. Healing in a way, you can say it. I was reading Deepak Chopra's Buddha.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
And we keep talking about you know uh, enlightenment. We
Right.
don't really understand what is enlightenment. We've been studying what was enlightenment since the time that I've been in class, maybe 5 or 6, when
Right.
we studied about Buddha. But it was
Right.
very difficult to understand. But in Deepak Chopra's Buddha, he describes, what happened to Buddha during the process of meditation under the Bodhi tree, and thereafter when he got up from his meditation and he started moving along the streets, and he could feel as if he was a part of the street, and the street was, and the trees and everything was a part of him. Somehow it touched a core of my being, and
Right.
I realized, okay, that is what meditation might mean. Okay,
Right.
when you become one with nature. Technically speaking, we all knew all these things, but the way they described it,
Right.
he described it, that made me identify with it. Otherwise it could not. So that's a part of healing. You understand, okay, you are a part of nature, nature is part of you, and meditation is like you sit, your fears go away, Your anger and all goes away, simply goes away. You let it come to you and it goes away. You somehow end up identifying with all these things. So that's a part of healing and all those things. Your mindset grows and your mind opens up and all those things happen. So that is, I should say, it is true. Then, of course, I'm also into Reiki and acupressure. Okay. And that also is something that has come to me through reading. The first time I was exposed to these ideas, it was through books. And then it caught my imagination. And then, of course, I healed my sinuses through, the sinus. I had that through acupressure. Reiki
Right.
is always there for me. So that is how it is.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yes. So that's interesting. With great care, Carl pulled the crate out from its corner. There were only 3 books lying forlornly inside. He took out brown paper and string to pack each book individually, as though it were a gift. Sabine Gruber had told him on numerous occasions he shouldn't bother and to spare the expense, but Carl insisted. His customers were expected. In a reflex action, Carl was entirely unaware. His hand stroked each cover before wrapping the books in the thick paper. Finally, he picked up his olive green army backpack, marked with all the wear and tear. Bundeswehr use, but still in good condition thanks to Carl's care. Bundeswehr is the German forces, Army, Navy, Air Force. Although it was empty, the fall of its cloth clearly indicated emptiness was not its natural form. He gently lowered the books between the heavy folds on the backpack, which he had lined with a soft blanket, as though he was carrying tiny puppies to their new owners. He arranged the 3 books in the backpack, with the smallest resting farthest away, while the largest nestled next to his back, where it would not be compromised by the curve of the backpack. As he was leaving, he paused, then turned to Leon. Please, would you dust the greeting cards? Miss Gruber would like that. Best to arrange them in here. And then you can work in peace. I've always done it at the desk. Whisking Nick Hornby's fever pitch from the shelf where he had spied it earlier, he laid it on the desk. The football pitch was a luscious shade of green. Ursula Schaffer wouldn't have given it a second glance. So you can see now he's trying Mr. Gruber's trick on Leon. And this Nick Hornby's fever pitch is actually about a relationship with his football club, Arsenal. So it's something that Leon will certainly find interesting, right? So Manisha, should we stop here?
Can I speak?
Yeah, please.
There is this book that I had read, Conversations with God.
Yeah.
It's by Neil Donald Walsh. The book
Yeah.
1 and book 2 especially is very healing when you come to explain everything. Like when we think about, he's explained to us that everything comes in pairs. You can't understand the good unless you understand the bad. So when, if you want to experience the ultimate joy, you need to know the ultimate sorrow as well. So, you experience everything in pairs, in opposites. So unless you do that, you don't, you really cannot experience what you want to experience. So, that is a very healing thing. Like you come to know, okay, so the things are not going well with you, but it's okay. By the end of it, you are going to experience something which is very, very, joyful, something, something that you really wish to experience. and that in itself, puts everything in perspective. So that is about the healing part. I mean, you were talking about. So
Yeah, sure. I remember reading that part 1. It's very nice. Yeah. Ila ma'am, you wanted to say something?
No, I agree to it, sir. The perspective definitely matters. When we say keep patience, things will come to you. So our hard work result in good things. It somewhere soothes, and even it heals all the toughness, all the hardship we have gone through to the process. So it's true. It's true. Time takes its own time, and it's a good healer also. Very interesting. Nice to hear, Meenakshi ma'am.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any comment? Bhavna ma'am, Neha ma'am, Harmeet ma'am, anything you would like to sort of share with us what we've read or any thoughts that may have come? Manisha ma'am, we'll stop here. Huh? This book is a little tougher than the
Yes.
earlier one. So I think you wanted to share the program earlier, but you may not have gone through it in any detail. If you want to do that.
The March calendar.
Yeah. If you want to do that or anything else, it's back to you.
I'll just share the calendar. Is my screen visible to all?
It's coming. Yeah.
Okay, in the first week of March, 2nd March is the first Sunday, so we'll be reading both the books. On 9th, we have Allegory, along with that book reading of the door-to-door bookstore. 16th, we'll again read both the books, alongside 23rd as well. We have the YES workshop, Youth Engaging Society, where Miss Leena is going to inspire us and help us understand and navigate with our dreams and aspirations. For the Teachers Academy, it is mainly for the teachers. We are working on Fridays as well as on Saturdays. At AFA, that's the school DEI school which we have adopted, we are reading Is Your Child Ready to Face the World? And that is in Hindi session. In case somebody wants to join us, you're most welcome. Just email it to me and I'll make necessary arrangements for you. That is point 1. Secondly, Krista ma'am has started also in our DEI school with the English communication skills, and that's aligned with what exactly is the need of that particular school. So there we have. As we all are aware about the book Show Me Das, so that's going to happen on Saturdays. And My Good School, there's another book, writer is Mr. Sandeep Dutt, as we all are aware of it. That book reading we are going to do on Fridays, along with Jamku Devi School. So on Thursday, we have just started with the poetry sessions. All the students and teachers, you all are most welcome to join this session. We are planning for our Monday art sessions and Tuesday music sessions. Do let me know who all are interested so that the necessary arrangements can be done. Not last but not the least, we are having at Atafoot Academy, we will be having a retreat starting from 11th to 14th of April. In case you all have not still registered, please do register and let me know so that I can make necessary arrangements for pick and drop facilities. Any questions from anyone?
No.
In case there's no question, with this, I end today's session. Thank you everyone for joining. Let's meet for the retreat or the next session, whatever is comfortable with you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye. See you.